The wind howled through the skeletal remains of the Varkon jungle, reduced to ash-gray stalks by orbital fire. Smoke curled lazily upward, obscuring the stars. A human soldier in a torn and dust-caked uniform moved through the ruins like a phantom, low, silent, deliberate. Sergeant Cole Mercer was supposed to be dead. The trap had been perfect. He remembered it clearly. The false intel, the abandoned structure, the sealed chamber rigged to collapse. Captain Ky'vanna of the Serach Dominion. Regal, calculating, the architect of his demise. But she'd underestimated humanity's desperation to survive. She'd underestimated him. Now she was the one being hunted. Ky'vanna sat stiffly at the command dais of her mobile outpost, located within the canyon fortress of the Los Ridge. Despite the cold air, a sheen of sweat slicked her brow. Her eyes flicked over a dozen status panels, most blinking red. Her team had gone silent. One by one, patrols vanished. Drones lost signal. Surveillance feeds glitched. The human was alive, and he was coming for her. She remembered the moment she'd watched the rubble fall on him, a flicker of regret shadowing her pride. Mercer was clever for a Terran, lethal in ways her people had not expected. But he was still just a human. Wasn't he? She stared at the cracked tactical map. The perimeter was shrinking. His approach was methodical, like a surgeon cutting away fat to get to the heart. Ky'vanna tightened her grip on the arms of her chair. Bring me the scout feeds again. Every zone. Captain, her aide chirped nervously. There's nothing new. We've lost contact with the entire south sector. She blinked. That's impossible. That includes 3 sentry teams and 3 quad drones. I know, ma'am. We think he's jamming us, somehow. Then he's learned, she muttered. Ky'vanna stood and straightened her uniform. Prepare the evac skiff. I'll meet you there shortly. Ma'am, with respect. I'll finish this myself. Cole Mercer crouched atop a burnt-out observation tower, rifle in hand, his breath even. Ky'vanna's voice echoed faintly through the comm system he'd hijacked. She was in the fortress, preparing to flee. He wouldn't let her. His unit was gone, 30 men and women from Earth's 5th Expeditionary Assault Group. Lured into a canyon, trapped by collapsing tunnels, their air scrubbers clogged with nanite soot. He was the only survivor. The only one stubborn or mad enough to claw his way out through raw instinct and fractured steel. And she had smiled as the rocks came down. Mercer slipped through the wire perimeter, bypassing what remained of the outpost's defenses. He moved like death incarnate, a shadow among corpses. He had no words left for her, only retribution. Ky'vanna descended into the lower chamber of the fortress, where a private escape tunnel had been carved into the rock. She walked alone, one hand on her pulse blade, the other cradling a small translocator beacon. She paused at the bulkhead and pressed her palm to the ID scanner. Nothing happened. Then, from the shadows behind her, I wouldn't bother. I jammed the beacon. She spun, drawing her blade in one fluid motion. Mercer stepped into the flickering light, half his face smeared with soot and blood. One eye burned with fury, the other barely open beneath a gash. His rifle was slung low. In his hand, a jagged combat knife. Ky'vanna didn't flinch. You survived. You sound disappointed. No, she said coolly. Only surprised it took you this long to come for me. They circled each other in the silence, 2 predators who once fought on opposite sides of a battlefield, and now stood alone, their wars burned away. You sent 30 people to die, Mercer said, voice raw. You watched it happen. I was following orders. you'd have done the same. No, he spat. Not like that. We don't bury our enemies alive and call it strategy. You think you're better than us. I think we remember the faces of those we kill. Then she said quietly, I remember yours. The first clash was sudden. His knife against her blade, sparks flaring. She danced back, tail flicking, her four-fingered hand slicing forward with precise strikes. He blocked, rolled, kicked out her leg. She staggered. He didn't press the advantage. She stood again, chest heaving, expression unreadable. You could have killed me, she said. Not yet. Why? Because you need to understand what it feels like, he growled. To be hunted. To know death's right behind you. That you earned it. I do understand, she said, stepping forward, blade lowered. You think I sleep easy after what I did. You think I wanted to set that trap. You sure smiled like you did. I was afraid, she snapped. Of you. Of what you represented. A human who kept surviving when logic said you shouldn't. My superiors wanted proof you could be eliminated. He stared at her, uncertain. I did it because I was told to, she said, lowering her weapon completely. But I stayed behind because I wanted to be sure you were gone. I watched those rocks fall. Waited. I stayed too long. He narrowed his eyes. Why? Because I wasn't sure I wanted you dead. The knife in his hand trembled slightly. He remembered the woman on the ridge. Not the cold strategist, but the fierce warrior who met him in battle 4 times before. Who spared his medic once. Who didn't fire when she had a clear shot. But also the woman who led him to a slaughter. Why are you telling me this now? Because I know I won't leave this place. And if I'm going to die, you deserve the truth. Mercer exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon. The silence between them was thick. Not peace but something close. A shared fracture in their lives. Then the wall behind Ky'vanna exploded inward. Sarek Dominion reinforcements burst through the tunnel. 5 troopers in silver armor, weapons raised. Ky'vanna was shoved aside as they opened fire. Mercer Dove rolled behind a support beam, returned fire. 2 troopers went down. Another screamed as plasma scorched through his chest plate. Ky'vanna scrambled to her feet and drew her blade again. She turned on the remaining troopers, not toward Mercer, but against her own kind. She sliced the neck of the nearest soldier. Shot another with his own rifle. Mercer froze as the last one turned and fled into the tunnel. Smoke cleared. She turned to face him, breathing hard, weapon lowered. I called them before I left the command post, she said, shame in her voice. They were backup. I didn't expect this. He looked at her. Really looked. You fought them. She nodded. I made a choice. Another silence. Then Mercer said, let's get out of here before they send more. They emerged into the canyon night, ragged and limping. The stars were clearer now, the wind colder. They said little as they climbed the ridge and followed the ridgeline west. An emergency Terran extraction beacon blinked in the distance. One Mercer had activated hours ago. After what felt like hours, they reached the evac zone. The Terran dropship hovered above the plateau. Ramp extended. They emerged into the canyon night, ragged and limping. The stars were clearer now, the wind colder. They said little as they climbed the ridge and followed the ridgeline west. An emergency Terran extraction beacon blinked in the distance. One Mercer had activated hours ago. After what felt like hours, they reached the evac zone. The Terran dropship hovered above the plateau. Ramp extended. A squad of human marines stepped forward. Weapons raised when they saw Ky'vanna. She's with me, Mercer said. She's Sarek, the squad leader snapped. She's the enemy. Not today. The Marines hesitated. The pilot chimed over comms. Orders, Sergeant. He looked at Ky'vanna. Her hands were raised. Her eyes calm. He remembered the ambush. The rocks. The betrayal. And then he remembered her turning her blade on her own soldiers. He nodded. She comes with us. That's an order. The ship rose into the sky, leaving the Los Ridge and the ruins behind. Ky'vanna sat beside him in the med bay, her shoulder wrapped in gauze. They'll brand me a traitor, she said softly. Maybe, Mercer replied. But humans have a word for what you did. She turned her head toward him. What word? Redemption. She blinked. You set the trap. I escaped, he said. Now you're the target. But you chose the right side, Kentucky. Did I? He smiled faintly. You'll find out. Just stick with me. She leaned back, her body exhausted, her future uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was running toward something. Not away. Ending. New allegiances. The dropship's hum filled the quiet between them as Ky'vanna stared out the narrow window, watching the blackened canyon recede beneath clouds. Above, the stars shifted, and she felt the familiar sense of being untethered, adrift between who she was and who she might yet become. I never understood why your kind kept fighting, she said, almost to herself. Mercer sat beside her, half his torso wrapped in Medigel bandages. Because surrendering isn't always survival. Sometimes it's extinction. And yet here you are, offering survival to someone who tried to erase you. Someone who changed her mind, he said. That matters more to us than you think. She let that settle between them. A soft chime broke the silence. An incoming message. Mercer tapped his wristband. A Terran officer's voice came through. Sergeant Mercer, report. He stood slowly, wincing. We're clear. One survivor extracted. Requesting debrief and full asylum hearing for her. Static crackled. For the Sarek captain. She fought with me against her own. Saved my life. Stood down when she didn't have to. Long pause. Copy. We'll see what High Command says. Prepare for arrival. The transmission ended. Mercer sat back down. You've bought me time, Ky'vanna said quietly. Not safety. He looked at her, eyes steady. Time's how we build trust. One breath at a time. She turned toward him, then truly turned. And for the first time she offered her hand, palm up, the Sarek gesture of alliance. Of humility. He stared at it, then took it in his own. The moment was simple, but it was history in the making. 2 weeks later, Terran Coalition Outpost Tau 9. The desert wind here was dry, tinged with copper dust and a scent of mechanical oil from the field drills. Beyond the walls, the horizon shimmered like molten glass. But within the base, all eyes subtly watched the two figures walking side by side. Ky'vanna wore modified human fatigues now, gray and dark green, fitted to her lean frame. The insignia on her shoulder bore no flag, only a simple silver triangle. Neutral observer, pending official alliance. Some whispered she'd turn on them. Others said she'd already saved a life and earned a second chance. Mercer walked with her daily. Not as a handler. Not as a warden. But as a bridge. You really think they'll let me stay? She asked as they passed a group of Terran engineers. I don't think, he replied. I believe. Is there a difference? For humans. He smiled. Always. She paused at the edge of the balcony, overlooking the shuttle yard. Ships landed and lifted like migrating birds. The war wasn't over. But something inside her had shifted. And behind her, a new path waited. No longer alone. No longer Sarek. Not yet Terran. But something in between. Something new. I still dream of the canyon, she whispered. The rocks falling. The silence. I used to have that dream too, Mercer said. Until someone pulled me from it. She looked at him, a strange softness in her alien eyes. Thank you, Cole. He simply nodded. Come on. They're waiting for your testimony. And as they walked back into the heart of the human base, together, the wind carried their footprints away. But something far stronger remained. Bond. Beginning. And perhaps in time peace.